The first time I saw Kale, he was bleeding out on a gurney, eyes wild, burning with fury. He looked like a creature of violence and shadow, a man who could command with a single glance. And I, Leo, was the nurse assigned to patch him up. For weeks I tended to him. I learned the set of his jaw meant pain. The quiet stillness in his eyes meant calculation. I thought I was being professional, detached. But my friend and colleague Anya saw right through me. "You're in love with him?" she whispered one day, worry threading her voice. "Don't be ridiculous. It's against the rules," I said, though my heart was racing. Was I that obvious? Apparently, yes. The next day, while changing his bandages, his hand shot out, his fingers circling my wrist. Not harsh, but firm enough to stop the world. "You look at me differently, nurse," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in my bones. Don't what? Don't get any ideas. I don't do relationships. They're a weakness, a liability." The words hit like a blow. My face burned with humiliation. "You sensed wrong," I lied, forcing a calm mask. "I'm not interested in you, Mr. Thorne. I'm just doing my job." I didn't wait for a reply. I finished in silence and left the room. Later, Anya found me with shaking hands and untouched coffee. "Did you tell him?" "No. He just noticed and told me not to get ideas." "But you never fall for patients," she said. "What's different about him?" I had no answer. That was the terrifying part. The next morning, I asked Anya to switch patients. I couldn't face him again. Kale noticed immediately. Anya told me he'd gone silent when he heard I was gone. That silence, she said, was more frightening than an outburst. A week later, he was discharged. I thought that was the end. I buried the heartbreak beneath shifts and routines, but his stormy eyes haunted me. I was in the corridor, chatting with my old friend Ben, when I felt it, a shift in the air. I turned, and there he was, Kale, in a black coat, looking like a king of the underworld. "I heard you were on leave," he said, voice casual but edged with steel. "When did you return?" My pulse spiked. "Mr. Thorne, you look well." "Came for a checkup." His eyes narrowed. "When did you come back?" Ben, sensing the tension, mumbled a goodbye and left. "I just resumed." I lied. "Why are you here?" "I'm fine," he said, tone bored, eyes blazing. "Is he one of your patients? Are you like that with all of them?" "He's a friend. And yes, I'm friendly with my patients. It's my job." "So, why are you here?" A muscle ticked in his jaw. "That friend made me forget why I'm here. I should go. Can I have your number?" "I'll tell you when I remember." Caught off guard, I gave it. He entered it into his phone, gave me one unreadable look, and walked away. 2 days. No text. No call. "I'm so stupid," I groaned to Anya. He was just playing with me again. That evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. "I'm at your door," his voice said, low and steady. My heart stuttered. "How did you find where I live?" "There's nothing I can't know when I want to." The line went dead. Trembling, I opened the door. He stood there, his gaze sweeping over me and my small apartment before stepping inside like he belonged there. "You didn't call," I said quietly. "I'm here now," he replied, eyes tracing every corner of my space, every inch of me. "Why are you here, Kale?" I asked, using his name for the first time. He turned. "You left before I was discharged. Switched nurses." "It was unprofessional," I lied. "I apologized to my supervisor." He laughed short, humorless. "Don't give me that policy talk. You ran because I called you out." He stepped closer, not touching me, but I felt his heat. "I spent a week in an empty penthouse," he said, his voice softer now. The silence was deafening. I realized I'd gotten used to your voice, the way you hum when you concentrate, the scent of your shampoo. His eyes darkened. "I missed it. I don't miss things." My breath hitched. It wasn't a confession. It was a truth he couldn't help but admit. "So you decided to just show up?" I decided to claim what's mine, he said, gaze flicking to my lips. You've been mine since you didn't flinch when I told you I'd end your career. Then he kissed me hard, desperate, claiming. All control, all heat. I should have stopped him, but I didn't. It felt like the missing piece of my soul snapping back into place. That night, the storm in my quiet harbor finally broke. The weeks that followed blurred. Kale never asked me to be his boyfriend, he just was. He cooked in my kitchen, slept in my bed, and waited outside the hospital after my shifts. But he never talked about his work. The first late-night call came at 2 a.m. He dressed fast, his voice cold as he said, "I'll handle it." When I asked, he kissed my forehead. "Go back to sleep. Business." He came back the next day, acting like nothing happened. I stopped asking, but the silence grew heavier. The calls kept coming. Then one night, a news bulletin broke through the TV static. Breaking news: a shooting in the industrial district. Multiple casualties. Believed to be linked to ongoing gang conflicts. The camera showed a figure in a long black coat walking away. The same build. The same walk. Kale. My blood froze. The secrecy. The late nights. The danger. When he came home, the news still flickered on my phone. He froze when he saw it. For a heartbeat, his mask fell. "Leo," he began, voice rough. "Don't," I whispered. "You lied. You're not just a businessman. You're a criminal. You put me in the middle of your war." He crossed the room, kneeling before me. His hands gripped my knees. "I lied to protect you," he said fiercely. "The less you knew, the safer you were. My world is ugly, Leo. But you're the only good thing in it." "By lying to me?" I cried. "By making me feel like I was never worth the truth?" His eyes burned with desperation. "Then let me make it the truth you can hold," he whispered. And there, on his knees, he told me everything. Every secret, every sin, every drop of blood on his hands. He gave me the power to destroy him or forgive him. It was the greatest risk he'd ever taken. And as I looked into the eyes of the storm I'd fallen in love with, I realized I had to make a choice. I looked at the man kneeling before me, a king brought low not by an enemy, but by his own truth. The silence in my small apartment was heavier than any I'd ever known, filled with the echoes of his confessions. Guns, money, territory, blood. His world was a nightmare, and he was offering me a place in it. My heart was a frantic, trapped thing. Every instinct, every rule I'd ever lived by, screamed at me to run, to call the police, to save myself. But I looked into his eyes, the same stormy eyes that had haunted me from a hospital bed, and I didn't see a monster. I saw a man who had built his life on a foundation of control and violence, and who was now willingly shattering it for me. He was handing me the wrecking ball. My choice wasn't about condoning his sins. It was about choosing the man beneath them. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and cupped his jaw. His eyes widened in shock, then fluttered closed as he leaned into the touch, a ragged breath escaping him. It was the most vulnerable I had ever seen him. "Your world is ugly?" I whispered, my voice thick with tears. "But you don't have to be alone in it anymore." It wasn't forgiveness. It was acceptance. The breath he let out was a shuddering, full-body relief. He surged forward, wrapping his arms around my waist and burying his face against my stomach, holding on to me as if I were the only solid thing in a crumbling universe. "I will keep you safe, Leo. I swear it on my life," he vowed, his voice muffled against my shirt. That was the promise. The consequence was everything that followed. Life with Kale was no longer a secret affair. It was an armed fortress. My apartment was quietly upgraded to a top-floor unit in a building with excellent security, which I soon learned meant armed men in the lobby and state-of-the-art cameras on every floor. My phone was replaced with a secure, encrypted device. My route to and from the hospital was no longer my own. I was driven in a car with bulletproof glass. Kale was different, too. The walls were down. He talked to me, He told me about his day, not the sanitized version, but the real one. The tensions with a rival faction, the logistics of his legitimate businesses he was trying to expand, his frustration with a disloyal lieutenant. I became his confidant, his anchor in the truest sense. He still commanded his empire with an iron will, but when he came home to me, the storm in his eyes would quiet. The possessiveness was still there, but it had transformed. It was no longer about controlling me. It was about protecting what we had. He'd still get a dark, jealous look if a colleague hugged me a little too long, but now he'd tell me about it, grumbling into my hair later that night. "I don't like how he touches you," he'd murmur, and I'd laugh and remind him I was a nurse. Touch was part of the job. It was almost perfect. Almost. The consequence of my choice arrived one rainy evening. I was leaving the hospital, exhausted after a double shift, waiting under the awning for Kale's driver. A man in a delivery uniform approached, holding a clipboard. "Leo Valdez?" he asked. Before I could answer, one of Kale's men, Marcus, stepped smoothly between us. "I'll take that." The delivery man's friendly demeanor vanished. His eyes, cold and flat, met mine over Marcus's shoulder. "A message from Silas Van Corp," he hissed. "Tell your boss he shouldn't keep what doesn't belong to him." He shoved the clipboard into Marcus's chest and melted into the crowd. In the car, Marcus opened the delivery. It wasn't a package. It was a single, high-resolution photograph of me, taken 2 days prior, laughing with Anya at a coffee shop. On the back, scrawled in red ink, was a single word: liability. My blood ran cold. Van Corp was Kale's most ruthless rival, and now he knew about me. When Kale saw the photo, the calm, controlled man I lived with vanished. The gang leader returned, his face a mask of cold, murderous fury. For a full minute he just stared at the picture, his knuckles white. "That's it," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You're not going back to the hospital." "What?" "Kale, no. My job is a risk I will not take," he roared, finally looking at me, his eyes blazing. "This is what I feared. This is the consequence of my weakness. He looked right at you, Leo. He called you a liability. He's right. In his eyes, you are. And he will use you to break me." It was the old Kale, the one who saw love as a fatal flaw. He was trying to build the walls back up, to lock me away in a gilded cage for my own safety. "So that's your solution?" I shot back, my own fear turning to anger. "You pull me out of my life? You make me a prisoner? That's not keeping me safe, Kale. That's letting him win. He wants to isolate you, and you're helping him. I am keeping you alive," he thundered, grabbing the edge of the table so hard I thought the wood would splinter. We were at an impasse, fear and love warring within both of us. The tension lasted for 2 days. I refused to quit my job. Kale barely spoke, the air around him crackling with suppressed violence. He doubled my security, but it felt like a condemnation. The breaking point came when Anya called me, her voice shaking. "Leo, 2 men came by the hospital asking for you. They were creepy. They knew my name. They said to tell you that Silas sends his regards." What's going on? They were targeting my friends now. My world was shrinking, just as I'd feared. I found Kale in his study, staring at a map of the city, his posture one of a general planning a war. "They talked to Anya," I said quietly. He didn't look up. "I know. You can't lock me away, Kale." "I can and I will," he replied, his voice hollow. "It's the only way." I walked around the desk and stood in front of him, forcing him to see me. "Then you've already lost. You told me I was your anchor. An anchor isn't meant to be hidden in a safe, dark box. It's meant to be dropped in the stormy water to hold the ship steady. That's what I am for you, so let me be that." I placed my hands on his chest, over his pounding heart. "Don't let him turn your love for me into a weapon against you. Let it be your strength. Fight him, Kale. But fight him with me beside you, not with me locked away." For a long moment, he just looked at me, his gaze searching mine. The war in his eyes was almost painful to witness. Then, something shifted. The rigid control gave way to a grim, resolute determination. He pulled me into a crushing embrace, his face buried in my neck. "God, you're going to be the death of me," he breathed. But there was a hint of awe in his voice. "And the making of me." He pulled back, his hands framing my face. "Okay, no cage. But we do this my way. You follow every rule. No deviations." Kale's way was more brutal and direct than I could have imagined. A week later, I was by his side as he walked into a neutral territory meeting with Silas Van Corp. The air was thick with the threat of violence. Silas was a snake of a man, with a slick smile and dead eyes. "Kale," Silas purred, "I see you brought a friend. The nurse. Isn't it? Cute." Kale didn't even look at him. He pulled out a chair for me, his movements calm and deliberate. Then he turned his full attention to Silas, and the temperature in the room dropped to freezing. "You sent a photograph to my partner," Kale said, his voice soft but carrying to every corner of the silent room. "You spoke to his friend. That was your one mistake." Silas's smile faltered. "Now, Kale, we're all businessmen here. We understand leverage." "He is not leverage," Kale interrupted, his voice like a whip crack. He finally looked at me, and the possessive, reverent fire in his gaze stole my breath. "Leo Valdez is not a liability. He is my heart. He is the sole owner of my loyalty, and he is under my protection." He turned his burning eyes back to Silas. "If you so much as look in his direction again, if you speak his name, if you even think of anyone he has ever known, I will not just kill you, Silas. I will burn your entire empire to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. This is not a negotiation. This is the new reality. Do you understand?" The silence was absolute. Kale had not just declared war. He had rewritten the rules of it. He had proclaimed his greatest perceived weakness as his ultimate unassailable strength. He had claimed me not as a possession but as his partner. And in doing so, he had become more powerful than ever. On the drive home, he held my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles. He was quiet, the adrenaline fading. "You were incredible," I whispered. He brought my hand to his lips and kissed it. "You are my anchor, Leo. You steady me in the storm." He looked out at the passing city lights, a ghost of a smile on his face. "And it seems you are also my sail. You make me move forward." The consequence of my choice was a life of danger. It was a life where love was a declaration of war. But as I looked at the man I loved, the storm I had chosen to embrace, I knew the truth. If loving him was the thing that destroyed me, it would still be worth it. Because in his arms, I had never felt more alive.